The Second Amendment Preservation Act. What is it really, and how does it benefit gun owners here in Georgia? Here's 5 facts you need to know. SAPA is very simple. It says, number 1, this is a sovereign state. Georgia has its own right to keep and bear arms in our own constitution. Our cops work for us, and they are not an appendage of Joe Biden and the war against gun owners. Number 2, SAPA tells Georgia cops to only enforce Georgia law when it comes to firearms, ammunition, and accessories. Number 3, SAPA has teeth. If the Atlanta PD, for example, violates SAPA, you can haul them into civil court for damages. Number 4, SAPA does not limit what the feds can do here in Georgia. It just says we're not going to let our cops help you do it. And number 5, it is fully backed by the Supreme Court. For more information, watch the rest of this video. Hey guys, Aaron Dorr here with Georgia Gun Owners. That was a quick rundown on what SAPA is. But now I'm going to take some more time and explain the bill to you in vivid detail and answer a lot of questions that we're getting from GGO members. I also want to answer some of the questions from all you liberal trolls in the media who are trying to critique this bill, having no clue what the heck you're talking about. It's okay. We're used to that. So at its heart and soul, SAPA is a 10th Amendment state sovereignty idea. SAPA reminds Joe Biden that this is a sovereign state. Georgia has its own constitution, which protects our right to keep and bear arms. Georgia taxpayers fund the salaries of Georgia's law enforcement communities who enforce the laws passed by the Georgia General Assembly. You see the common thread here? Georgia, 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 Georgia. Our cops don't work for Joe Biden. Our state is not a mere vassal of the federal government. This is our state. Our cops work for us. And that presents a real problem for Uncle Joe Biden because he's lost control of the House. The days of him ramming gun control through Nancy Pelosi's chamber, those days are done. So he's got 2 options. Try to convince rhinos in the House to pass gun control. He'll try that. We'll keep an eye on that for you. But more importantly, he's going to use more executive order-based gun control to attack our gun rights. These are blatantly unconstitutional. They're never voted on by the Congress. He doesn't care. He's a tyrant, and he's going to move more gun control through executive orders. And that's where SAPA comes in. See, Joe Biden doesn't have the manpower to enforce his agenda all across the country. Biden, like every other president, has always counted on state and local authorities to aid in the enforcement of federal laws, and in this case, executive orders. And sometimes we're willing to do that. Depends on what the law is. But when it comes to gun control, the answer is absolutely hell no. That's what SAPA does. It tells Georgia cops that they are only allowed to enforce Georgia law when it comes to firearms, ammunition, and accessories. We will not let our cops be used by Joe Biden to enforce unconstitutional federal gun control. We also know, however, that some of our blue cities, take Atlanta, for example, they would love to violate SAPA because at their top echelons, they're more politician than they are law enforcement. And so they would love to violate SAPA. And if we give them a chance, they'll do exactly that. So SAPA law, properly written, the way we're going to have it filed, has civil penalties in the bill. And that means that the Atlanta PD, for example, would violate SAPA and enforce federal gun control against you. You could haul them into civil court, that agency, for civil damages. You can bypass the AG, bypass the governor. You could directly hold them accountable for any violation of SAPA against you. That's what makes SAPA so powerful. That's also what makes SAPA so pro-law enforcement. You see, SAPA doesn't just protect gun owners, it protects the legions of pro-gun cops here in Georgia who do not want to enforce federal gun control. All these frontline cops love SAPA because if their command staff tells them to enforce federal gun control, all they have to do is point to SAPA law and say, hey, gee shucks, I'd love to, but we have to follow SAPA law here in the state of Georgia. Now, one of the main questions we get, and you're going to hear this a lot from politicians and from the media, is that SAPA violates the Constitution because it violates the supremacy clause. It's not constitutional. What's the answer to that? Well, the answer is pretty simple. The supremacy clause effectively says that the federal Constitution trumps the state constitution and federal law trumps state law. That's a layman's perspective, a layman's interpretation. And that's fine. That's not in play here when it comes to SAPA. See, SAPA is not challenging federal authority. I'm going to say it again for the dumb reporters watching this video. SAPA does not challenge federal authority. If Joe Biden wants to flood our state with FBI and ATF, and they want to go house to house enforcing gun control, SAPA law would not stop them. But by God, we're not going to let our cops aid in that enforcement. They can do it if they want, but we're not going to help them. That's what SAPA says. So we're not challenging federal authority. We simply will not help them carry out these unconstitutional gun seizures, period. See how simple that is? And by doing that, again, we're denying him all that free manpower. His agenda will fall flat on its butt. Could Joe Biden flood the state with feds to enforce gun control? Sure, but he won't. He can't. Number one, he lacks the manpower. And number two, he cannot afford the optics of having plane loads of federal authorities land at the airport in Atlanta and go house to house grabbing firearms accessories here in Georgia. It simply will not happen. So SAPA is 100% constitutional, does not break the supremacy clause, is 100% pro-law enforcement. And here's the other thing. SAPA is backed by hundreds of years of Supreme Court precedent. It's all over our website. You can find it for yourself. There are over 5 or 6 different cases in the recent past, and some that go way back to the 1840s, where when the state and federal governments collide, when the feds say do this and the state says hell no, there's multiple cases where the Supreme Court has said in that case the states are sovereign entities and they have the authority to tell the federal government to pound sand. It's backed up by case law going back hundreds of years. More recently, SAPA is law right now today in Missouri. Our sister organization, the Missouri Firearms Coalition, passed this law just last year. So now in Missouri today, Missouri cops enforce Missouri laws. Very simple. They maintain law and order just fine. What they're not doing is enforcing current federal laws on behalf of Joe Biden. Now, of course, the DOJ hates that. The DOJ has tried 3 times to overturn SAPA law in Missouri. They have failed every single time because, again, SAPA does not challenge federal authority. It simply tells Joe Biden that our cops will not help you enforce it. Folks, this is the issue of our time in Red America. We finally finished the constitutional carry problem here in Georgia in 2022. That was a major accomplishment for gun rights. And now going forward, the issue will be an all-powerful federal government run by a tyrant named Joe Biden, who are trying to use their authority with executive orders and federal bribe money to make our cops do their bidding, to make our state government subject to federal power. SAPA law reminds everybody that will not happen. This is our state, and you do not have control over how we live our lives here in Georgia. Folks, it's going to be a big lift here in Atlanta. Get involved in our fight today. Hit the website for more information or join GGO today as a member at joinggo.com. Thanks, guys. We'll keep you informed. Take care.